Good morning, West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Welcome. I am Reverend Clyde Goins. I'm the assistant minister here. There I am. There I am, Kendra. So I just want to welcome you here on this. It's actually a nicer, cooler Sunday morning, and I love when it rains because the rain reminds me about how it is nourishing the earth, and it just reminds me that I need to slow down and take care of myself, right? And so I hope that all of you are doing the same thing, that we take time out of our busy days or busy activities in life and just pause for a moment and just rejuvenate it whichever way or any way that you know how it works best for you. So anyway, so it was a beautiful, nice little rainstorm. I hope you guys got it in your home. We got plenty of it at ours, so I'm really, again, really happy about that. So we come together every Sunday to remember our truth, that we're whole, perfect, and complete just the way that we are, and we're supporting one another on this beautiful journey called life. And we come here to be recharged every Sunday and go out into the world and be that beacon of light that we are, that spiritual being. So we're going to start off by saying not our giving affirmation. I'm jumping way ahead. Our vision statement together. So let's say our vision statement together. We are having joy-filled community, honoring the many paths to God as we learn and live the science of mind principles. And so it is. And so if you're new here visiting for the first time, I want to welcome you. And we have refreshments after service, so please join us for refreshments after service. So now if you would just sit back, relax, get comfortable in your seats, open up your hearts and minds for the Bradford's beautiful opening song and Reverend Karen's beautiful message. Thank you.
Oh, so just take a deep breath. Sorry. It's okay. So we're getting into that peaceful place where we connect with the divine.
I will make a quiet place within my heart, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know. I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
Good morning. Right here, right now, there's but one presence, one allness, one love, one joy, one peace, beauty, freedom, light, love, And I choose to call this presence God. God is all there is. God is all there was, is, and ever will be. And we are all part of this God. We are part of this whole. We all are love, beauty, joy, grace, happiness, fun. All of this, we are. And not only do I know this for us, I know this for the whole world. Each of us are individualizations of this God. So I say a word of blessing for Reverend Karen and her wonderful message today and all the beautiful ideas that she's going to give us that we may take and use throughout the week and grow and become closer to the divine within. I say a word of blessings for the Bradfords and their wonderful music that always, always lights us up and fills our souls. So knowing this service is already perfect, whole, and complete, I just release it into the law knowing it is already done. And together we say, and so it is. So my reading this morning is from my extension study course, which I really finished, all 48 weeks. And in the beginning of each, thank you guys, really. In the beginning of each chapter, Dr. Holmes writes a letter to the students. And this is from the last class that I took. And I just thought this letter that he wrote was so sweet and so perfect. I wanted to share it with everybody. We grow by following some divine interior awareness which was implanted in us before time began. You must trust yourself, even as you lean on the sustaining power of the infinite. For it is through your inner self alone that this infinite becomes realized and manifested in your experience. Your intellect has a secret to share with you, with your soul, and your mind has a secret to share with the Supreme Spirit. God is all there is. There is nothing else. Whether it be a bird, a beast, a fish, a tree, a man, or an archangel, God is still all there is. All things are manifestations of the one presence, the one power, and the one life. This is the secret of secrets. You have this secret to share with God, and God has already shared this secret with you. But now you know you must share it with Him. The thought and the idea of God must become warm and intimate and colorful in your consciousness. A sense of the indwelling presence must be real and immediate. For there is no room. There is only here. There is only then. No then. There is only now. No tomorrow. Only today. There is no place where you, the individual I, leaves off, and God, the universal I am, begins. To you there is only one God, and God in you, and the two are one. Seek then to cultivate this divine indwelling presence, for it will respond to you, and you will know that you are not alone. Human aloneness will have passed with the consciousness of your union with the whole, with all people, with all things. Loneliness will have passed. You will still be alone, but you will never be lonely. Contemplate that for a moment. God is, I am. And so it is.
Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the temperature's high. Oh, your life is rich, and abundance surrounds you. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Every morning you're gonna rise up singing, and you'll spread your wings and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning comes, there ain't nothing can harm you. With loving kindness and spirit to guide. Come on, honey. That's my honey. Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the temperature's high. Oh, your life is rich and abundance surrounds you with loving kindness and spirit to guide. With loving kindness and spirit to guide.
Woo! Bradfords. Oh my goodness, what has happened? Where have you been? What did you do this week? Where did that come from? New hat?
It's the hat.
It's a hat. Woo! Never take it off. Wow, that was so cool. Good job. That was so amazing. Oh my goodness. Good morning. Welcome to the West Valley, and we are here for a good time today. Wow, what a great start. Excellent reading, a letter that Holmes wrote to his students. What year do you know when that was? I'm gonna have to find out. You're gonna have to find out for me. And I prepared a message for us that I'm a bit excited about. And man, that just is such a great way to start the day. Thank you. An old favorite of mine, and Hugh and I could feel him here. I could feel him real satisfied, because that's kind of music that really makes his heart soar, along with the rest of him lately. So we are on the downhill side of a month of conversations on relationship. And I specifically today, all of CSL ministers are sort of blending in the ideas of different relationships in lots of ways. We've been considering it, as you know. And today I really wanted us to look closely at our relationship with God. So it's a real personal message today, and it's about the way that we commune, that we take time to have experiences of just recognizing the presence of God in our lives right where we are. And the title of my message, which so fits the reading, and woo, you changed the lyrics in that song a little, and that was very exciting and unexpected. And what we're talking about, the title of my message is The Enigma of Existence. So an enigma is sort of that mysterious part, like why have human beings existed on the planet for this long? And how do we fit together all those things that are complicated or that even sometimes feel like contradictory, like a paradox, a seeming contradiction. And so we have these experiences in our own lives, as was so beautifully, called out by Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, this philosophy, reminding us of this greater truth of our being. And still we bump into things that are complicated to understand. Life can be complex. Like, why do I get to experience joy when other people on the earth seem to be suffering? Why is it that I can rejoice in the overflow of good and plenty in my life while we're aware that there are people that don't have enough, that there aren't resources in their individual lives? Why do some people live their lives in expressing a greater image of freedom than other people? And so that's an enigma. Why is there all this goodness and richness on the planet, and yet the world looks pretty scary at times, and especially the times that we've been living in recently? So I have this quote. I wanted to start with this great quote that I have kept on my desk for a while. I like to rotate. If you've ever been in my office, you see I have little sticky notes all over. It's even worse at home. But I love leaving them there. And over time, you get to just know them, or you'll have a moment of looking at it from a different perspective, and it has better meaning to you. So this quote on my computer, one of the quotes on my my computer monitor in my personal office, is from Carl Jung, and I would remind you that Carl Jung lived about the same time as a contemporary almost with Ernest Holmes. So he was born before 10 or 15 years before Holmes, but he lived in that same time period where so many great changes were happening in the world and in the world of science and our understanding of psychology, which is what Carl Jung brought in. And Carl Jung and Holmes had great respect for his work. And he did give us a footing for what we call depth psychology, for understanding spirituality and psychology, or the nature of people and the way it's all woven together. Carl Jung said this, and for me personally, this is excellent advice, which is why it's on my computer monitor at home. I'd like to remember. Literalism kills spiritual instinct. When you take things too literal, you're snuffing out some spiritual possibilities. And I know this of which I speak because I tend to be a little pragmatic in my own life. I'm kind of a black and white thinker, which is really odd because I'm also I've got the mystic in me. I very much relate to other mystics and the mystic in Dr. Holmes as an example. So I have all that. But when I start taking life too literal, I lose it. Because now I'm living and I'm focused in the world of form and where things, have a different kind of reality. And then when we're focused on the physicalness of life, we sort of lose some of our spiritual essence. So I believe that the spiritual, at the core of spiritual understanding, this essence is mystery or enigma, the assured expectations of things that you can't quite see but you believe can come. It's our faith. It's our faith in a power that's greater than we are. And when we spend time, when we have a spiritual community or we have a practice of personal growth and a spiritual application of principles in our lives, then we can be more confident and certain about eternal truths. And I sort of addressed that last week. That was sort of my theme last week. So this is why spirituality exists, so that we don't take things too literally, that we have time to take a little rest from being too intellectual. I like, though, in that reading that you did, Miss Kathy, how he aligned the intellect with the mind of God. That is such a beautiful pairing that we always can resort back to understanding, kind of resting in that. So I find that because I can be pragmatic, I find that it helps to keep spiritually open. I have a very devoted spiritual practice so that I can find balance, so that I can walk on the planet. I can do the things that I need to do in in my daily routine, but that I can also have that relationship with God, with spirit, with something that is greater than I am and that created all of life. So I do that to help keep me balanced. It keeps me, it helps me refresh my spiritual instinct to stay close to God, and touch that wonder and the awe of sort of the miraculousness of the existence of life itself. I took the title of the message and the theme of what I wanted to say today from a quote I found in the Essential Earnest, and here are the words of Dr. Holmes. There is and there must be a unitary wholeness running through everything. There is and there must be a unitary wholeness running through everything. The phenomena of human existence can be explained in no other way. There has to be something more, or none of it would make sense. Now, I understand that the quotation itself has a complexity to it that makes it a bit gritty to try and put it on and see how it feels for us personally. And that's why, see, it's the complexity of a quotation like that that calls us to center, because it's not meant for us just to have an intellectual thought and try and figure out what it means. It's meant for us to try it on and to rest in it and to stew in it and to soak it in and just to sort of be in it until the message there can speak to us in a very personal and individualized way. That's how we express God in our lives. That's why you can't read the mystics like you can't read Emerson, like you can read a piece of fiction or even somebody's memoir, or because it's got the nature of something deeper and richer and more possibility. Because when they were writing that stuff, they were in that space of communing with that unitary wholeness. So I would say that unitary wholeness is a quality that exists. As Holmes says, it's necessary. We wouldn't be here without it, and we have moments of understanding it. But what we're saying here is that there's an intelligence in our body, in our physical body. I kind of heard it in your prayer this morning, Kathy. There's an intelligence at an energetic level that does everything that our body needs to keep us existing. But that very same intelligence is in the body of the planet, in the earth itself. There's a brilliance in every plant, in every insect, in every four-legged or winged creature of the earth, that every living being has a pattern of perfection, and it is how existence continues. So when we look at it that way, what we see is that the entire universe is one whole system. Right? There's a unitary wholeness there, and you don't have to understand what that means as much as it's valuable for us to examine it and go, oh, yeah. So I can't ever make sense of when somebody says, oh, yes, when a butterfly flaps its wing on the other side of the earth, it impacts us here on this side. So that's hard, but that's an enigma. And what it's saying is it's talking about that unitary wholeness, and that some wise thinkers and authors and philosophers have thought this through to where they make statements like that because they understand it at some deeper level than most of us can. Most of us can't get there very easily. So it is, I would say, unitary wholeness would be the single spiritual principle that holds all of life together. It sustains life. It fuels us. It's the very reason we continue. Now, I often say that in order to understand wholeness, sometimes the easiest way to understand what we mean by wholeness is to look at the opposite of wholeness. So what's the opposite of wholeness? It would be fragmented pieces. It would be a separation. And you'll hear that term, separation, often in spiritual teachings. They'll talk about when we're separated from the truth of our being, that's when we behave in those egoic patterns that are sort of unconscious patterns that we exhibit in our living. So if I don't feel perfect, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm not feeling but complete or even spiritually uplifted, then I'm out of rhythm with some natural movement in the universe, but it isn't gone. I've just gotten a little distracted. You know, life requires our attentiveness in some interesting ways. And so I was thinking about, I was thinking about a pie. I've had my mind on pie lately. I will confess. And so I'm going to make it a peach pie because peaches are prime right now to become pie. Do you have peaches on your property, a peach tree? Is it working yet? Is it producing? I'm just saying I love peaches. I love peach pie. So let's say I baked a peach pie and I put it in one of those windows. You know how they used to be able to, we had a cabin where they had one of those windows and I'd put the pie in there just because it was so fun to put a pie in it. And let's say somebody came by and saw my delicious peach pie sitting there and grabbed a little piece of it and took it from the pie. When I return, when I'm prepared to serve that pie for dessert after we've had a nutritious dinner, I'm going to notice that a piece of pie is missing from my whole pie. It's no longer whole. A piece is missing, right? Now, what happens in our human nature? Now, the pie has been, it's been diminished in its value, right? I'm going to be annoyed that somebody snuck a piece of pie before it was, time, before I said it was okay. And so that really is our human nature. When a piece is missing, we see the flaw. Our attention goes directly to the flaw, and man, it is really hard for us to get our eyes off what's broken and wrong. But the spiritual path is always inviting us back. Now, unless it was like a raccoon that got into that pie is probably still perfectly fit to eat, but it will be disappointing to me as the hostess that wanted everybody to see how pretty the pie turned out. I have never made a pretty pie. My pies always look really homemade when I make them. And I never learned to make crusts like my mom made the best pie crust. She used to say the secret was peanut oil. I've never tried it, but maybe that's why my pie's not good. And lard, I also have read that people still use lard, that lard can make very good pie crust. I don't know why that just popped in my mind, but I know that I've heard that. So let's go back to, I wanted to say something interesting, that Holmes, every now and then I bump into a place where Dr. Holmes would say something like this. So somebody ate a piece of peach pie. He wouldn't say that. I'm making it peach pie because that's what I'm talking about. And somehow, nobody can explain to us why, at least in a way we can understand. Somehow that peach pie becomes fingernails and bones. Isn't that something interesting to think about, that we have to fuel this body? So when we look at these ideas in the context of the body temple, when we say things like the body temple, we are talking about how holy and divine we are in the way we are physically created. And I like to just think that, well, yes, of course, because we're created in the image and the likeness of the Creator itself. So we can never truly be separated from our godness. Something about us is purely divine, and it can be hidden and it can be covered over, and I can forget about it, but I can never be separated from my Godness. No piece of it can ever be missing because it's an energetic, think of it as this vast power. Think of it as love, as a powerful force in the universe. It's always right where we are. It's always right where we are. Now, I can get distracted, and I notice that's what happened. Who took my pie? Now I have turned my back on everything behind me because I'm looking to figure out what happened as if I can restore it, right? That's not going to happen. I'd have to make a whole new pie. But now I have turned my back, and I always think of that. It's like, in our human body, and certain animals, how a horse will move its ears and they can only see on this, we see it in nature. We understand that you can only see what's before you at the perfect angle for whatever your species is. And so if I'm looking at the problem, then probably the solution or my way through and out of this bondage of feeling betrayed or taken advantage of, whatever the emotion is, if I'm focused on that, I'm going to still lose sight of all the good that's there in the world. Isn't it something that our automobiles, not my car's, I hate to say it's old because it feels like I just got it, but it's like almost 10 years old. But my car does not have this feature, but when I'm riding in the car with Reverend Clyde and he's chatting away, if he veers a little bit off a lane, his little car will go beep, 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 and then he has to correct his course, right? So the cars, and he's not the only one, a lot of you have that feature in your cars now. So the car has something built in that tries to keep you on the path. And so think of it like that every day we get up and we have this God potential, a potential to reveal what's wonderful and great about us and all the good things we want to experience in a day. And we get sidetracked by the little things that happen. And we don't quite have a feature like that. It's annoying. Now that beeping, it's, but we can train ourselves to start to notice the uncomfortable feelings of what happens when we veer off that path. And you have to be careful or you'll be without even knowing it, you'll be making a whole new path in another direction. I have to say I watched the playback of, I think it was last week, and I got to, how I get excited when I pray sometimes. When I opened my eyes, I was facing this way. It's like, oh yeah. To turn myself around. So we get off path sometimes and we think we're a certain way, but we've shifted a little bit. So when I'm talking about shifting and getting back on the path, I'm talking about getting back into the enigma, the mystery of existence, and then trusting that you do have that guidance system in you. You're always one with it. You can't be separated from it. It's like when we're in the flow of it, there's a harmonizing effect that feels good. So when you're not feeling when anything feels out of order, it's that little car beeping sound to get you back on the path. Get your attention to get back to your intention is the call to life. So divinity within us. And on this planet, in spite of everything you read and hear and see with your eyes, remember, you're looking at the missing piece of pie and you're missing the true nature of life as it keeps continuing to evolve and grow and expand. Turn around, face it in a new direction. So, that which is the godness about us doesn't get old, it doesn't get frail, it doesn't forget things, it doesn't get overwhelmed, and it's never diminished, and that is really, really good news for all of us. It is one of the forever mysteries of life, the enigma of existence, and that enigma is that life insists on continuing. Every great thinker and philosopher and deep deeply grounded spiritual leader. They have all thought these things out. Every historian that has studied the way civilizations come and then they go, we shouldn't be frightened by the end, the idea that there's an end of a civilization, because truly life will not be the way it was before we have experienced the last 2 years or so. But even civilizations come and go. It is part of that enigma. And in fact, the best of the historians say that not more than 10 generations can pass. And what's really interesting to me is the more I study this stuff, the patterns haven't even changed. Like, so now we're blaming it on technology and the young generation, and they aren't, they're so entitled. And do you know that that's one of the symptoms of the decline? When you get to where the civilizations begin to decline, and that's one of the signs of the decline, is that the younger people, have all that. So there's something very normal happening, and yet it calls for us to be vigilant. It calls for us to make a choice as to how we want to move through it. Listen to this quote from Aristotle. Aristotle was like pre-Jesus. Aristotle was, there was Socrates, and then Plato, and then Aristotle. So Aristotle studied, his teacher was Plato, and Plato's teacher was Socrates. So Aristotle said this way back when. Creation is imbued with inherent purpose, and the synthesis of order, direction, and continual motion in the universe cannot be a byproduct of chance. It's not an accident. There's a pattern here that knows how to do what it does. When we study nature, it becomes clearer and clearer. So yes, there is something magnificent about life that is absolutely divine, and it's perfect, and it knows that intelligence, that infinite intelligence of all creation, knows how to maneuver through any kind of a setback. And that is true because we are a part of creation. That is true for me, and that is true for you, and that is true for everybody listening to the sound of my voice. It is true for all of life, and it is a truth of this entire universe because it's the same truth. It's the same divine pattern. It just expresses individually. And that's what it means when you hear a practitioner say, we are individualized expressions. Yes, we are all a little bit different from each other, but we are a little bit different from all the rest of creation as well. And yet, the pattern, the divine pattern in all of it is exactly the same because it's that essence of God. I like to call it the DNA. And the fact that it's a universal truth for all of us explains why illnesses come and go. It explains why we can experience financial ruin and we absolutely rebuild. It's like it's so amazing to have lived as, you get to be a certain age and you've been through all those experiences and you see that you always recover or you wouldn't be here. And yet we are. And that is the same reason there can be an island somewhere in the ocean that has a volcano erupt, and the island is covered with lava that turns into volcanic rock, and it's not too long before all the dust settles and you see a palm tree starting to grow. Right in the middle of all the volcanic rock, right? There's an active volcano and life erupts all around what we might call rubble, begins the creation process again. How does that happen? It's an enigma, and we don't need to know, but we sure as heck must notice. There is an insistence on the part of life to live and to express. Now, recently, in the last couple of weeks, actually, I discovered a fabulous researcher, a woman researcher named Kelly Turner. And Dr. Kelly Turner is known, she's kind of famous for her work in studying people who have had fourth stage cancer, and they have had what they call radical remissions. In other words, these are all people who were told they would not recover. And something happens, and it looks like a miracle has fallen in their lap, and they recover. And so Dr. Kelly Turner created a team, and they worked with 1,500 survivors of cancer who were medically described as having radical remissions. And they found that there were 75 things that all these people, there was just these themes that kept showing up. There were about 75 things that kind of fit a little bit of everybody, but they narrowed it down to 9 things that every person, 1,500 people in the study, every person had the experience of these 9 things. I'm not going to tell you all of them, but what's real interesting to me is that out of the 9 things mentioned, only 2 of them were physical. Everything else was mental or emotional changes they made in their lives. Do you hear what this is saying? This is really important news that should be touted. Only 2 out of the 9 things were actually physical things. And the number one thing was that they all changed their diets. It was like a big wake-up call. No, I want to be here on the planet. And they became involved in their physical eating. And vitamins and supplements was the second thing they had in common. The second physical thing they had in common. But do you know what some of the other things were? I bet you want to know, don't you? Every one of them made a firm decision to control their own well-being. Beyond, everything that this does not say they were not getting medical treatment. This does not rule out the people that had all the traditional treatments that go with whatever type of cancer they had. But every one of them made a conscious decision to be in charge of their own well-being. Do you hear what they're saying? That they were not a victim. That I would not be a victim. People have said to me, I have just gotten this diagnosis and I have to have this treatment. And then I always pause because I'm so taken that we just say, oh, I have to do that. No, you don't. No, you don't. You should choose what you're going to do. Right? If you choose to get the treatment, then you have opened yourself. It's just like putting a prayer request in the prayer box. The minute you make the choice, you don't even have to walk over there and drop your prayer in. You have activated spiritual principle into moving in your behalf because you speak the words. So you can drop a prayer request, and I might not even hear about it till the next day. I start my prayer the next day, but that treatment started healing you the minute you wrote it out and started walking to that prayer box. Do not underestimate how this stuff works. Number 2, another one that really touched me is that every one of those 9, every one of the 1,500 people said that they had done something to deepen their spiritual connection, whether it was to God or a higher power. They made a conscious decision that there has to be a power in the universe that's greater than I am, and I am opening myself to that power. I am inviting that into my life so that I can have this experience of wellness through something that knows better than me, something that put intelligence in my being, so that I can align myself and harmonize myself with those healing efforts that are always flowing in the universe. And the third one I wanted to mention was they made a strong commitment to practice positive emotions. God, I love that one because that makes me think of who was the guy that laughed himself well? No. But yeah, there are just so many. Don't we have a lot of great people that have given us wonderful examples? But some important person that only became important because he did this study. And I want to say he was a doctor, and he watched sitcoms that made him laugh, things that tickled his funny bone, and he believed he healed himself through laughter. So yes, increase your positive emotions. How do you do that? You better start looking at it. You know, what a fun thing for us to imagine that I can look at ways to have more joy in my life, that even in spite of all the things that I've been through personally in my last few months, that I'm still entitled to joy. And in fact, that no matter how down you are, there are those silly times where you can't help but laugh. So even when you don't want to laugh, sometimes something will make you laugh, and that those are really good things for our soul. It's a cleansing that's really useful. So I, as a spiritual leader, as a minister, I feel, you can hear, I have a passion for saying these are lessons we can learn and we can apply in our own lives. And I actually feel almost an urgency, and yet these are really simple things. Right? These can be such simple things that they can make our life not only to heal us, but they can bring us more joy and more harmony and more peace and so many other ways. And by the way, you can look her up on the internet if you'd like to read all 9 things, or you can ask me. I have the whole list in my office. I think the message then is where it seems like an enigma, you know. It seems like, how could that be? But we need to choose who we're going to be. We need to make a choice for our own life and how we want to show up in it. In fact, Meg Wheatley, one of my favorite, do you know Meg Wheatley? Oh my gosh, she works often with Parker Palmer, and Meg Wheatley in 1966 was in the Peace Corps, and she went on to be this very well-educated Harvard and then Berkeley PhD, and scholastic, but loves people, and she does really good leadership writings, and I know her because of seminary. I was turned on to her while I was in school, and she remains a favorite of mine. She wrote a book called, a recent book, Who Do You Choose to Be? Who do you choose to be? And in that book, she talks about the way that we all have power and influence in our lives. That all of us have other people in our lives that we influence, whether we intend to or not. You know, it's not about parenting or leadership. All of us have a circle of somebody, maybe in your neighborhood or your spiritual community. And she talks about the way that we could set intentions for ourselves, that when we are with other people, whether it's community or in the grocery store or wherever you are, that we can create an attitude within ourselves that we could then evoke, like stimulate. We evoke in other people the draw to share their best qualities, so that we are bringing better qualities to the planet, and that we really have the ability to do that. I want to read you this profound quote. It is possible to find a path of contribution and meaning if we turn our attention away from the issues beyond our control. Woo, baby, do I pray every day about the issues in the world that I can't control. But I got to give it to God. I got to give it to God, or I'm going to get overwhelmed and I'm not going to be effective for everybody. So she says, we have to turn our attention away from the issues beyond our control, and we focus on the people around us. This is what I love about spiritual community. It is possible to use our influence and our power to create islands of sanity in the midst of raging, destructive seas. Oh, that sentence just touches my heart. It's possible for us to create islands. I get this vision of the island with the volcanic rock all over it, and life insists on the palm trees coming back, and the lush greenery and the flowers that are going to bloom on a tropical island, right? It's in the nature. It cannot not do that. So it is possible that our full influence and power to create islands of sanity, we could do that in the midst of raging, destructive seas. I think that what that means to me is that if I'm having a really hard day and all I can see is everything that's wrong in the world, it tells me it's still possible for me to bring good to the world, to help evoke somebody else, to call out their qualities, the best qualities of humanity, to call out peace and calm and love and joy, to call out joy. There's no limit to the ways in which we have been called to nurture each other's creativity and possibilities and to get more love and generosity flowing on the planet. So when I hear that terms, islands of sanity, I couldn't help but think of my favorite mystic, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who spoke of the way, this was a quote I heard the night I was at a ministerial graduation, and I received the call to ministry while this great choir was singing, and I was just washed over with the Holy Spirit. I don't think I've calmed down since then. And somebody said that Emma Curtis Hopkins said, "Lord, show me the way to make the world glad and sane." You know, and that touched my heart, and that was in 2004, and now all these years later, I'm standing here talking about us coming together as a spiritual community, coming together in our own neighborhoods, and becoming islands of sanity so that we can make the world glad and sane. Listen to the context of it in a bigger way. She said this in the book Resume. "Rise up, my soul. Rise up, my soul, and heal the sick. Wherever I walk, show people how to be strong. Quicken me with heavenly fervor." Oh, I love this stuff. Show me the words that make the world glad and sane. So every now and then, God shows up and shows you the words. You bump into somebody, maybe even a stranger you don't know, and you have a conversation you did not expect, and the words that come out of your mouth were not what you thought, but God shows up, right? Because we have opened ourselves to it. I should probably end there, but I have this great quote. I can't resist. I have to read to you. Historian Howard Zinn, he writes, "He helps me understand this crooked world." Howard Zinn says, "We don't have to wait for some grand utopian future." Do you hear that? If you're sitting around waiting for the world to settle down and waiting for the two sides to come together and kumbaya together, you're not doing it well enough yet. Right? We don't have to wait for some grand utopian future, because the future is an infinite succession of present moments. It's not tomorrow. It's not over. It's not down there. It's right now. To live now as we think human beings should live. We're living in a defiance of all things that are bad around us. We are in defiance of all the bad that still exists, and that is a marvelous victory. From the words of a historian who studied the movement of civilizations. And that, my friends, is what I wanted to say today. Woo! Got to calm myself down. Let's take a nice, deep, cleansing breath with me, please. Just shake it all off. Because we're going to pray. we're going to slip sweetly into that zone of sacred communion with the Most High. And so for a while, we just rest in this space of love, in this sanctuary that we create in our togetherness, in the way we make community, whether we are sitting in this room or listening from a distance or at a different time. None of it matters, because right where we are, right here, right now, God is. And so we open ourselves to recognize the presence of the Most High. And we feel it within us. We feel that love of God, and it indeed is a quickening that allows us to feel a fervor, a passion, an openness to possibilities that are so supreme we have not yet even imagined them. I feel the love of God in this room, and I recognize that it is indeed the movement of life. That in the very words of this prayer, we become an island of sanity. And we ground our feet right here in this truth. We allow ourselves to not just feel the volcanic rock that is the after effect of an eruption, but rather we anticipate the seeds that are sprouting through everything that looks like rubble. We are allowing ourselves to realize that we are a part of how we fertilize possibilities for the future of humanity, in the way that we evoke in each other these gorgeous qualities of love, of peace, and of beauty. We evoke that trait of balance and harmony, and we are equalized and stabilized yet again on this planet. We do our work, and it's easy and effortless because we know how we are fueled by something that is greater than we are, that is here to support us, that is the guidance system that sounds alarms when we have veered from the path. And so we realign ourselves. We use the power of this moment, of the words of this prayer, of the thoughts that have washed us clean this day. And we feel rejuvenated and opened and healed. For we have harmonized with a unitary wholeness that is seemingly an enigma, and yet it is a divine truth. And we just allow that truth to be seen as who we are. We choose who we are and how we desire to live. And therefore, we do good work on this planet. And so I know that not only are we personally and individually blessed, but that blessing ripples out into the healing of families and loved ones, so that there is not only physical healing, but our relationships are blessed and ancient wounds turn into sacred space. And we are accepting and receiving those blessings so that we might allow them to ripple out in every direction. And therefore, we have done our work. I am grateful this day for this spiritual community that knows how to come together to be an island of sanity. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, infinite spirit, for all of these blessings, this renewed awareness, and the sense of being purified again. I release the words of this prayer into the law, knowing it is absolutely done, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
Grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so
Oh, thank you, Bradfords. When Reverend Karen was talking about this West Valley Center for Spiritual Living Island of Sanity, I'm just thinking about myself swimming out there in the ocean of life and landing on the island and taking a breather. So that's what it felt like to me. So thank you. All right, so just a couple of quick announcements. First, I think it was announced last week, and I wasn't here last week, but we did send out the statements, the mid-year statements, to let everybody know that to make sure that we are on track with our tithing, and that make sure that we didn't mess up anything, or I didn't mess up, I should say. So if there's some if the numbers don't look right or your tithing doesn't look right, please let me know, and I'll research and make sure it's all correct. The other big announcement I would like to say is that so we're officially kicking off our carpet campaign. So it's that is the last beautification that we need to do to this building, to this island of Sanity. Okay, so we want to replace this carpet, and so Reverend Karen sent out some information on that. There's more going to be coming. We're going to be talking about that over the next couple of months. But we are really focused on replacing this carpet. We've got a beautiful sanctuary going here, beautiful fellowship hall and Papke Hall. So we have this one last piece, and so I know that we can do it together. So that is going to be our focus. So now is the time to celebrate. Oh, one other thing is we have, and I always forget to do this, but we have our tithe box in the back of the room and also in the bookstore. We don't pass around the offering plate, so we appreciate you dropping off your tithe in the box for us. So, all right, I think that's it for today. All right, so now is the time to remember the abundance of our lives and the abundance of our community. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Please rise for our last song. About my problems, I'm living now, and I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now, so put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all, and raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. Now sing it. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, oh, it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, oh, it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, oh, it feels so good to be alive. Woo!
All right. It feels good to be here. So let's say our closing affirmation together. I accept that I am part of the wholeness. and I trust that my life is unfolding in divine right order.
And I trust that my life is unfolding in divine right order.
And so it is.